Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to the Medium's Table. I'm your host, Michelle Gardner. This podcast is your personal invitation to join me at the intersection of the everyday and the extraordinary. Together, we'll explore the magic of mediumship, share spiritual stories, and connect with fellow mediums on this incredible journey. So grab a seat, pour yourself a cuppa, and come join us at the Medium's Table, where spirits gather and stories unfold. Disclaimer, just a heads up to all our lovely followers. Our social media is a space where we share personal stories, including those of various mediums. Let's keep the vibe positive and respect each other's beliefs. Every journey is unique, and here we celebrate the diversity of experiences. I'd like to welcome to the show longtime friend, beautiful soul, and a medium of all things, Lynne. Welcome to the show, Lynne.
Thank you, Michelle. Thanks for having me. I know it took you a while to get me here because I'm just not used to doing stuff like this. But I'm intrigued with your new show, how you're getting things done. So here I am. Thanks for having me.
Oh, look, you know what? It's my pleasure. And yes, it has taken me a while to get you here. There's been a few mediums that have been evading me and trying to run away, and I'm like, hey, come back here. You need to tell your story. Your story's interesting.
Yeah, I've been one of those evaders. Oh my gosh, you want to talk to me? Yeah,
I do.
So,
because
and you have people who are hams. They love to be in front of a screen. They love to be in front of a camera. So that's not me. So it's uncomfortable waters, but I'm sure I will warm up. I'm just testing. My toe is in now. I'm not fully immersed, but I'll get there.
You will. And look, the thing I love about doing this podcast is we are just regular people having extraordinary experiences. And this is a conversation that we have together. And I love to share other people's stories, how they became a medium, because there's a lot of misconception around how that happens for someone. Would you agree with that?
Oh, totally. I've always read books about the afterlife. I was terrified to talk to a medium for the very first time, which was prior to just before I became a medium. I was put in a position where I had just like, okay, I got to do this. I have to talk to a medium to find out what's going on. And that's how I got there. I thought they were very strange people. Sorry, but I did. I thought they were strange people. I was always into the Bible, which is you do not consult with mediums. So, I mean, people are mediums and you just don't know it. That's one thing. But to consult with one was, you just don't do it. As far as I was concerned, I wouldn't sit there and, get out a cross and say you're evil. But it's like, I don't want to talk to them. You feel like they might know something that you don't want them to know because you realize they are psychic as well. It's like they're all in my head. Not that I have anything to hide, but yeah, they are all different. I find it very interesting. How I got here is a totally different story. I never saw it coming. I call it the tsunami. I just got hit from out of the blue. And so I'm still learning a lot.
Yeah. And I think I can vouch on behalf of every medium out there in the world. We're all still learning a lot, and we never, ever stop learning and developing. It is just something that continues to grow and evolve over time. And we never stop practicing. Which some people may think that, once you're a medium, that's it. You know what I mean? You don't need to practice. It's just there. But it's not always the case. We still need to keep growing, learning, practicing.
This is true. It's funny because I am a nurse. I'm a registered nurse. So I've been doing that for, 40 years plus. And that was always learning and practicing. You're always studying. You're always going to a class. And it's a constant practice. And I found out that the spirit world, I thought I was on the end of my career. I'm about to retire. And I could throw away the books. There's no more reading. I still do my pleasure. And I'm back to practicing and in classes and studying again. I was like, oh, How interesting. I did think people came to it easily. This is not an easy journey. It's not an easy job. You look at people on television, like John Edward or Teresa Caputo. I don't know who's popular where you are, but I would catch them every now and then. And it's like, I was just amazed. It's like, wow, what must it be like? Here I am. Yeah. So, like I said, I don't have that background. A lot of people I've run into since starting this is their background. They've been doing it for a good part of their lives, decades. Some people were born this way, and I hear their stories. Usually when you go to a circle, you try to warm up to each other, and it's like, well, how long you been doing this? And they might give you some of their background. So here I am. I still consider myself a newbie. And it is hard. I find it quite hard. And I'm just, how they do it on television, like off the top of their heads, is still strange to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And they make it look so easy, don't they, on TV? They make it look so easy.
They do. I feel like I'm pulling teeth trying to do. It's like, oh my gosh, you're sitting there rocking. What else am I getting? And they're just like throwing it out there. Oh, and the aunt said this and they did that. Remember when you did? No, it's not coming to me like that. Like I said, this was totally out of left field for me. I wasn't expecting it. It was not on my agenda to do this at all. I was, as I said, I was at the end of my career. I was ready to retire. I was planning to do that. I did the high school thing. I did the college thing. I did nursing. I did emergency rooms. I did corrections, which is prison services. I did ER, surgery. And then my last 32 years, I was with the police department. And that's clinical and case management at the same time. So I've been through 9/11. I was down there working with that and have like many illnesses related to it. And then and we had Ebola for a couple of weeks, and then we had COVID, and I was doing all these long tours from 2020 until 2022, and everything came to a sudden halt. What happened was you're going to hear a lot of my husband comments, my husband, because this is his story as much as it is mine, if not more than. Valentine's Day, we had just finished dinner and we were talking and making jokes, and he just like closed his eyes. That was it. Massive heart attack. And, we went to the ER that night. They had, CPR, I recognized what was going on, which is another weird story. But I did all that. They got his heart back, but it said extensive brain damage, and technically he was brain dead. So he's on life support for a day before he finally passed. However, this is where this picks up. Is I go home. It's like maybe 4 a.m, and I'm getting my nightgown out, and you're in shock. You don't know what to think. You're terrified. All types of things going on in your head. I'm getting my nightgown on, and I hear, it's beautiful up here, Lindsay, just like you said it would be. I'm like, okay, well, you're in shock. Yeah, you're actually kind of like looking around. So you're in shock. Okay. And I ignored it because I was like, well, how would I know what heaven was like? That's something he would say. But how do I know what heaven is like? And I went on. But to know my husband is to know that he's going to get his point across to you if he has to come to you in 30 different angles until you get the point. So this continued. The different messages I was getting. Like the next morning I get up and I was going to sit with him in the hospital. And I turn on the TV, we'd watch the news, and I saw the silhouette of his head and the screen. Now I wear glasses for distance, so I saw the silhouette and I was like, that looks like his head. And then it went to the other side of the screen. And I was like, all right, well, you're stressed. And then it went to the center, and I was like, that is not that anchor's head. That's his head. But I was like, you can't say anything, because I was like, all right, I'm just like cracking under pressure. Now I find I'm looking for items, and all of a sudden it was like, did you look over there? The thought goes in your head, did you look over there? Like I had my daughter take out cash. Yeah, so, it was like 9 degrees the day it happened. So it was still really cold. And I said, take out, you're going down to get some cash. And it was late at night, hours later, and I was thinking, what did I do with the money? And my sister's staying with me, so she's sleeping at the foot of the bed. My daughter's sleeping on another part of the bed, and now I'm looking around the apartment to see, where did I throw this money? So the other one gets up, my other daughter, and she said, what are you doing? She's getting ready to go to work. And I told her what happened, and she says, oh. So then the thought hits me, did you look in the green book? I was like, what the hell is it? And my daughter comes and she sees me looking. She said, what's the matter? I said, this thought hit me to look in the green book. So she goes, oh. So now I'm like, look, where's the green book? I saw it. I found it. It's in the bed with my sister. And there it is under her foot, the green book with all the cash in it. And it was just like, this is getting weird. This is really getting weird. So between making all these phone calls and getting to the hospital and trying to figure out what's going to happen to my life, you don't realize at the moment your entire world has been turned upside down, and it's a permanent thing. And you pass the next day, and then messages are still flying through. You're looking for something, you find it. And then it was, he's very eloquent, very poetic, the way he could speak. And then he could be what I would call him trash mouth. So he would always tell me to lay down or sit down, because I'm always doing something. And he wouldn't just say, why don't you sit down? It was like, sit your ass down already. Just relax yourself already. So I'm trying to find the suit to take to the funeral home. And every time I would do it, it was like all of a sudden I would get exhausted and lay down. So now this is the third time around. I got to find this suit. And as you're just sitting there, just like staring up into space, you get caught up in your thoughts. So, standing there, and the thought hit me, you need to lay your ass down already. So I said out loud, I figured nobody's here listening. I said, well, I would if you tell me, where the suit is. I got to find the suit. And next thing I know, I walk over to the closet, put my arm in and reach out. And there's this suit already zipped up in the plastic that I had seen one time. I forgot I even purchased it. And it's just like, wow. So this is the type of stuff that kept coming at me, and it was coming at me for months. And you have a point where even to like, I knew nothing about arranging funerals. I had help with that. Somebody drove me there. Another police officer was working with me. She drove me, and I have no idea what to do. And they walk you through it, because it's like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. But like I said, you find yourself staring with some widows, they call it frozen, where you sit down to put your socks on and you're staring, you stop and you're staring at a wall. And by the time you come out of it, you realize hours have passed. So I was going through those moments and trying to figure out, what am I going to do? And he would do the stuff like pay the bills. How do I do this? That's all you could think of. And in between, then you call in your job, I need time off. I need to do this. I have to make these arrangements. These messages are coming at me. So, you don't want to sit there and say, I'm stark raving mad, because that's what you're like, where are these thoughts coming from? So this went on for a while, and I didn't sleep too well, and the girls went off to work and climbed back into bed the middle of the day, and I heard his voice yell, stop. It was so loud, it reverberated off the wall. So I fly out the bed, blankets still pinned on me, and I knew that was his voice. So this kept going on, and in the interim, I was told, maybe you need to see a therapist. I was like, well, I think I have the right to be upset. But I listened. I went to the therapist. So she tells me to go on Facebook, which I didn't do Facebook at the time, and hook up with a widow support group. Did that, and I was scrolling through the thing. I would see this man talking with a baseball cap, and he's vaping. I scroll past him. This was going on for a while, and I stopped to listen to him. He was an online medium. So I didn't realize, you see people typing and asking questions, and he'd answer. So I was like, oh, wow. So that he's answering it. Well, let me see. I'll put hi. Put hi. He answered back, hi, Lynn. And so, and I was like, okay, so he could get this. So he would do, people would ask questions, but I guess they'd pay him for like 15-minute sessions. And then he would have a question, and whoever answered it first, you won a free read. Guess who won the free read? So I type up, this is now like 3 months in. I typed up like 23 questions, and I sent him, and he says, well, send a photograph with the questions, because people would type in their questions. I was like, as they went, I typed them and emailed them in because I didn't want to lose track. So I did that. And he answered. What happened is my husband validated 21 of the 23 questions. So I was like, so I'm not barking mad. In the end, he had said that, he's telling me that you are aware of him because you're an empath. I didn't know that. And I had no clue. I've always been tuned into people somehow, or they would ask me, how did you know this? Or things would happen to me, and how did you know this? My husband was the intuitive one. He would just like zoom in, like radar, get up, run out the house and come back with, he knew something was happening with the girls, or he knew, or even while on patrol, his partners would even tell me, you ever see how he works? It's like, it's crazy. It's like, he's like, he'd see something happening, or he'd be aware of it. And they would ask him, he's like, how did you see that, Jimmy? And he was like, how did you not? Things were very obvious to him, but his mother was that way. So you just figure everybody has a bit of psychic in them. We never questioned it, but he knew about my interest in mediums. I would watch the shows. So he would tape them. He got retired from a line of duty injury. So he was Mr. Mom. So I come home. Oh, Lynn, by the way, so-and-so had a show on whatever. I taped a few. So he taped a couple of mediumship shows for me, just because it had the topic. It was a 9/11 topic, because I was so caught up in 9/11 stuff and always being sick. So he taped people who had family members who were victims of 9/11. So he taped stuff like that for me, and I'd watch it, but he wouldn't. This stuff scared him. I had a tendency to know things, and if it resonated, and he was the recipient of what happened. For instance, we were going to Virginia, and the little light in the car was coming on, and he'd say, oh, we got a low tire. I'll fix it when we get there. It's a 7-hour drive, and it was late at night, and we eat and go to bed. We get up and go to breakfast. We're driving out, and he goes, oh, yeah, I got to get the tire checked. So I said, well, which tire is it? He says, well, it doesn't say. It just says low tire pressure. I was like, oh, and I said, what's funny is I had this dream last night that it was the left rear tires. I see him like look over at me, and he pulls the car to the side, and he gets the little tire gauge out, and he goes to that tire, and he climbs back in and puts the car in gear. I said, well, what was that? Was that what it is? He goes, yeah. We're not going to talk about this, Lindsay. And that's how it was. We're not going to talk about this. I would just, and this was how our lives went, first dating him, and he's driving down the street. It's my car, and he's speeding. And I was like, where's the fire? Well, what do you mean? I said, why are you driving so fast? And he says, well, you got to be a king in your own castle. He's in Brooklyn. The car's in Brooklyn. And you hear whoop, whoop. He gets pulled over to the side, and he shows his shield. Sorry, officer, I'm on the job. I won't do it again. A few days later, same thing. He's flying down the street. Why are you flying? What are you talking about? Whoop, whoop. The same thing over and over. So the third time it happened, I said, he said, don't say it. Just don't say it. So I was like, okay. But apparently he knew that I would pick up on stuff, but it was not to be discussed. Don't talk about it. And pretty much that's it. He was raised Catholic. You don't talk about these things. I'm Methodist. I was always reading Bibles and stuff. He didn't. He wasn't into all of that. But there are things you do talk about and you don't talk about. Virginia has this this restaurant where you could have dinner and visit the ghost, because that's where the Civil War was fought. So you have the ghosts come into the restaurant. And I've always wanted to go, and he's like, no, we are not having a ghost follow us back to New York. So, but I would tell him, I was, like I said, I was sick all the time, respiratory issues. I had cancer from 9/11, sinus problems. I mean, you name it, I've had it. And I was always sick. So, I said to him, like, one day, I said, and I'm older than he is. And I said, James, should I go before you? And it's possible, and it's allowed. Do you want me to visit you? He'd look, no, don't do that to me. I'll see you on the other side. Don't do that. So here he passes, and he's there within hours. I mean, when we went to the ER, I've worked emergency room, so I know this stuff doesn't happen. When my daughter and I got to the emergency room, the lights went out in the emergency room, and I just looked, and I looked at my daughter, and I said, that was Daddy, right? And she's a believer. So it's just like, it's okay. So we're there for a few hours, and they would give us an update on what's going on, and the lights went out again. Boom, like 10, 15 seconds, and they just come back on. I was like, wow, this is crazy. I said, I really think that's him. But at that point, they had told us he probably wasn't going to make it. And they wanted me to make a decision. And I was like, okay, well, you're going to have to give me time, what I'm going to do. And, eventually we went home. So I had to explain to my, because when they wanted me to do a decision, they said, do you want us to, if he goes pulseless, do you want us to do a code again? And I said, no, don't torture his body. And now I have to explain this to my daughter. It's a severe type of thing. Even if he survives this, another one is going to come within hours to weeks. And if he's not as brain damaged as they said, it would scare him to know this is going to happen. There's no way out. I said, and if he's not brain damaged, to be aware would scare him too. So that's why I said, don't torture his body. And that was it. She understood. But to have to make these decisions, and lights are going off around you, it was just like so many things happening at once. So here I am back over to, I know I'm bouncing around, back over to the medium. I thought about it. Now he's looking at a photograph, and he's telling me, answering my questions. But for some reason, I knew James was standoffish. He wasn't James. So I thought about it, and I was like, well, like I said, he didn't believe in this stuff. I don't want to talk about it. So I said, well, maybe he was mad because I went to a medium. So it's bothering me for weeks. Can I like go to a medium every now and then and ask him, hi, how are you? Just to say hi. I've always been a prayerful person. I was always praying. When it happened, I was praying every day, please, whatever it is, I just want him to be happy wherever he is. So that was my big thing. He was okay and he was happy. Now I know he's okay and he's happy, but not, is he pissed off because I interrupted his afterlife. That's how I was thinking, because that's how he thinks. You interrupted my afterlife, Lindsay. Give me a break. But apparently, that's what I'm thinking. Is like, all right, we already talked about this. I told you I'd see you on the other side. So, see you on the other side. So I go back after a month, and I said, I just want to know, was it okay with him that I spoke to him? So he sent me the picture again, and I send the picture, and he says, no, he actually liked that you did this. He liked that he likes when you speak to him. And, so I was like, okay, he's cool with that. And then I said, well, is there a way I could learn how to do this? Because I'm not going to pay some medium every couple of weeks just to say, hi, how are you? And he says, oh, yeah, sure, you could learn it. So I took the course. And after 12 weeks with this course, then they tell you about circles. I knew nothing about circles. And so I went to the first circle, and here it is on Zoom. And I was like, this looks like a seance. They're talking about sitting in power. And I was like, what the heck is it? Yeah, sitting here quietly. What the heck is sitting in power? So you do the sitting in power, and now you're supposed to try to reach out and make a connection, which we started with photographs. And, they tell you photographs have energy. And it was like, yeah, okay, whatever. So it was really difficult for me to do this. I was getting more messages prior to taking the class. And now this isn't what they made it. They made it sound like you take the class and you're reading people. No, you're not. How disappointing. That's all I can say. It was just very disappointing.
Yeah.
and then I'd find other circles. And it was the 28th of July, which I know is because it's the day I met him. So it was the anniversary of the day we met. It was talk about synchronicities. It was my dad's birthday. It was the day he started the police academy. And we had also found it was the day his parents had gotten married. So it was the 28th of July, our first anniversary without him. And I'm a mess. It's been like 5 months. And I saw where somebody posted a circle. So I go to the circle, and the lady comes in, and I'm the only one who shows up. So she goes, oh, she's in New Zealand, and she's talking to me. She says, okay. She said, well, we'll wait until others come in. And then so we start talking, and she had lost her husband the month before I did, lost mine. And yeah, I'm thinking she's a new medium like I am. So then she says to me, she starts talking about mediumship, and she goes on. She said, there's somebody here. She said, there's a person here. She said, he's holding a white flower. Do you know anything about that? I was like, no, do you? She's like, no. And then she goes, she starts speaking very poetically, very beautiful stuff about galaxies and eternity. And, and then she gets to the part where she goes, and when you come here, we will travel the galaxies together. And I said, hold up. Are you reading something, or is somebody talking to you, or what's going on? And she goes, that's what she said. This is what this person is telling me. And I was like, oh, because he sounds like my husband. He's quite poetic. And she goes, oh, well, let's find out. And she goes, give me a question. And I said, ask him if Ainsley is there. Ainsley was my husband's best friend. They met in the academy. He was our best man and godfather to our child. And he suddenly died of a heart thing too, like the year before, just when COVID kicked off. James was just totally devastated. This was his buddy. He was like a brother to him. So I said, ask him if Ainsley's there. And she goes, all right. No, he says, no, there's a Teresa over here. Do you know a Teresa? And I said, yeah, that was my best friend. But it's been 30 years. I said, he never met her. And she says, well, she's telling me about Teresa. She paints and she does this and she does that. And I said, yeah, that sounds like her. So I'm like, wow, he met with Teresa. This is crazy. So now my husband tells her, describes in detail his passing. How he was sitting here with me talking. She described the living room. She described when he can hear me, what I was saying. She got to detail. She actually was on Zoom with me for 6 hours, telling me all kinds of stuff. Apparently, she had been doing this for 23 years. And in order where she lived, you need certification to work. So that's why she had taken the class. So she explained a lot of things to me, which totally blew me away. It's like so many things going through my head. Like I would tell her, he was a policeman and he had been retired. And I was always, the funny thing is I would know he worked 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. And I would go to sleep with the TV on very low. But if I could somehow in my sleep, I would hear a cop shot on the television. I'd wake up, sweat trickling down my back, and I would sit up and wait till like 3 or 4, and you hear the keys in the door. He's home, and I could go back to sleep. But I used to always pray, for his angels to watch over him. And I would pray. I was like, even, you know what? Send my angels out to watch for him. And I just said it to her in passing. So at the end, she's talking to me all these really interesting things that she says. Oh, by the way, he wants you to know that those big angels that watched out for him, those were your angels. And I was like, wow,
Wow.
that's
Yeah.
crazy. So, I mean, I've been through a lot with the mediumship. I don't know if I've learned more about being a sitter or if I learned more about being a medium. It's like so many details to this.
Yeah.
It's not, and they said, we're doing this trance class, and I had to read to some lady, and apparently she has a thing with always going down rabbit holes. So I'm in the trance, and I didn't know what her journey is, obviously, and I said, don't worry about the rabbit holes because there's no such thing as rabbit holes. And when she said that, in my mind, I could see a ball of, because I crochet, a ball of yarn that was all tangled up, telling me basically everything's like a big tangle. Everything is intertwined. So everything is intertwined. And that's why I said I could go on, because it's like, I know I told you a lot, but there's so much I left out in between. I don't know where to go with this.
Yeah. It's, look, I'm to start with, I'm sorry for your loss, and I can't even begin to imagine, what you've been through, and just, I just can't even imagine, especially happening before you, but being a nurse as well. I just think, thank God you were there to start with.
My daughter said that.
Yeah, yeah.
She said that, and I was like, "Why are you thanking me?" And she was going to go to the ER. She said, "Why are you thanking me?" She said, "Because if you weren't here, we wouldn't have known what to do."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
My uncle had lost his wife almost a year to the day before that. He was a homicide detective, first grade, so he had been on a job 30, 40 years. And she was at home, and she went to the bathroom, and he heard her call his name. And he said when she opened the bath, she was in the bathroom, she collapsed in his arms. So when he's talking to me about what he went through, because I'd asked my dad, it's his brother, what happened. We don't know. We don't ask him. We just know, when she passed. He said she collapsed in his arms. He said, the thing is, Lynne, that you had the wherewithal to know to jump in and do CPR. Officers are trained to do this. He said, it never occurred to me to do it. He said, so I'm kicking myself thinking she could still be here had I done that. I said, well, I did it and he's still not here. And I was dealing with the guilt that he did not survive. I had pretty much like saved his life on a few other occasions. I picked up stuff that was going on with him that the doctors did not, which was another, how the heck did you know this moment?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the things you don't see. It was like you said, that thank God I was there, because that whole night was not typical of a night. I don't normally sit and eat dinner with him. It was I had my plate. He had already had his, and I had my plate. And I usually go to my room and look at TV and read a book. And this thought hit me, why don't you go sit with James and eat your food? You had a good day.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, actually, I was like between the thing. I was like rocking, go this way or go straight. And I went to the living room, and I saw the plate was empty. He was like, oh, you was hungry. Normally, I wouldn't be sitting there with him.
Yeah.
And eating. So to witness, and then I didn't even get into the lighting. I know I asked you a question. The lighting in the room looked like it is now. Like it was right, the sun was going down, but it was 7:30 at night. It was winter. It was already dark, but the lighting in the room looked like that. When I remember him, when we were talking, I looked at him, and he looked about 20 years younger, moments before.
Wow.
And I was looking at him, and I was like, you look really nice tonight. And he goes, I'm just wearing black. In my memory, he is wearing a red shirt. When I started going to circles, he appears to people, he's wearing the red shirt and the black slacks. And somebody who speaks to different, higher energies, Jesus and Buddhas and guides and stuff. She's been in her whole life. She, when I told her about it, she says, well, they can do that. That's how they want you to remember them. And she said, he wanted you to know his passion for you. And that's part of the red shirt and stuff. And it's, like I said, I'm learning more from being a sitter about the spirit world than I'm a medium, if that even makes any sense to you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, you get to observe more, hear more, as a sitter. And for those that don't know what a sitter is the person receiving the reading. That's what it, because a lot of people don't know what a sit may not know what a sitter is. And that's understandable. And it does go hand in hand, the medium and the sitter, because we always, even as when we practice, we're swapping continuously, aren't we, between, reading for each other. One person,
yes.
one person sits, one person reads. But that's just incredible. When you talk about the lighting in the room, I've actually heard that not too long ago from someone else. How her father was in hospital, and he was, in that in between state, 1 foot here, 1 foot there. And she said the same thing. The room lit up like the sun was shining in there. And it wasn't. It was, the curtains were drawn, and
you can't see. Yes, the hospital doesn't. You can't see the light, right?
Yeah,
the sun.
Yeah. So she said the same thing.
But you don't recognize it till after. I wasn't aware of it at the moment it was happening.
Yeah.
Again, the 7:28. I asked my daughter. I said, "What time did you call the emergency room?" And she said it was 7:30. So I said, it took me a minute to realize what was going on. So it had to have passed at 7:28. When I got the call on the 16th of February to say that he passed, the doctor said, well, he passed away. It was at 7:29. So automatically I knew it was 7:28. Somebody didn't catch the clock in time. Again, with the 7:28s and the synchronicities. But that light, I didn't realize it until maybe weeks later that the light was off. Just the way the room was lit. One of my questions to that medium was, I talked about this. I prefaced the whole thing, and I said, was that your angel that came to get you? And he said, yes, it was. That's what the light was.
Yeah.
Days prior, like a month before, I did dream he passed away, but I didn't mention it because I knew I didn't want to put that into the air, and I didn't want to freak him out because he's like, what? But he came to me with, he went shopping and he was unpacking stuff, and he comes from the living room and he goes, Lynn, I bought this crossing spray. And I said, well, what is that? He says, well, what happens, he says, because he'd watch TV late at night in the living room while I sleep. And he says, these weird shadows are on the wall and the cats go crazy. So I bought this crossing spray. So, it's like our eyes met for that split second. And then we immediately went back into whatever we were talking about, as if he never said it. And all of these are the things I picked up weeks after the fact. It was, you start seeing all the signs that were there that you didn't see.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's where I said you find out, as I've told people who found out who I told I do this, who just think I'm not handling his passing well. They think I'm a little nuts. I get to the point where at first I was offended. And then it was like, you know what, if believing that somebody is there, that, this is not something, especially, this is New York City. This isn't a common thing, mediums and spirits and stuff. If I tell you that my loved one is coming to me, giving me some sort of relief or comfort, who are you to sit there and say, you know what, maybe you need a psychiatrist?
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So I do not hide what I do. I'm at the point where I don't care. You don't like it, I can't help you. Or they'll ask me a bunch of questions, like they're quizzing me about the spirit world. Even like my dad, who is quite spiritual, my dad doesn't, this is another, we're not going to do this stuff. And he even would ask me questions. And finally, I said, really, it's not my job to convince you. Either you believe or you don't. And that's where I am with this right now. My daughters are not on board with it, but I can see them hovering sometimes, like when I'm doing a reading, you'll see, we do the thing with the other circle, and you might see me turning. I'll see them hovering. This is like, can I help you? But
curious, they're curious.
Yeah, they're curious, but then you have mediums with different strengths, different abilities. Like I said, I thought they would. I didn't think they were all one and the same, but I figured how they get it is how they get it. But to have some who are strong, who could speak to spirits verbally, like you and I are speaking, and others, they get signs. It comes in differently. But I've had several people tell me they picked up on his abilities and my abilities, and they'll say, "Oh, you have two daughters." And it's like, yeah, they said, "Your daughters don't practice?" And I was like, "No." They said, "If they did, they're going to be stronger than you are." They could see it. So I'm kind of getting the hint that eventually they might slide into this. So
Yeah.
that was also interesting to the genetics behind it. But then, I found out I got it from my great grandmother. She's come through. And, when I asked
Wow.
my mom about it, my mom was like, I don't know. And then I'll ask her questions. So they call her mama. And I'll ask her, and she's like, well yeah. She did. Like I said, the lady, she came in with two, rolling pins. She had 14 children. She was always cooking. I said, so they tell me this lady comes with these rolling pins and she's cooking in these pots and she's doing this all day. And then I forgot what the thing that got me. And she said, yeah, okay, that was her. So she comes in and she says she's actually been helping me, guiding me through stuff. Now, when I do these circles, as you know, my husband comes in a lot. And some mediums, which I really have an issue with this, they'll feel like if they, like you and I, we're in a circle and tell, oh, yeah, I've spoken to him. Let's get somebody else. This is who showed up.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is who I want to speak to. This is who I spoke to every day. Why are you doing that? It's not like he's giving me the same message because he's never given me the same message. That's the thing. So when he started coming in, he's actually helping me. He told me, so I'm going to be with you every step of the way. I always told him I wanted to go first. I want to die first because I don't want to live in a world without him. Which he was like, no. He said, you're a mom. Kids need their mothers. Their mommies are more important. I said, yeah, well, the girls are grown. He says, it doesn't matter. Kids need their mommies more so. A few weeks ago, I'm in a circle and here he is. I'm pretty sure it's him. And the lady starts giving me more and more hints. Would you understand the red rose? He brings me roses all the time. Would you understand this? Would you understand the chocolate? Would you understand? I said, oh, yeah, I got that. She goes, do you know you two used to fight about who was going to go first before we were born?
Wow.
In the previous weeks. And I was like, no. But at one point, I had gotten really sick. And a medium, he was talking to the medium. She says, he wants you to go get a physical. He wants you to take care of yourself. He said, don't think you're going to take the easy way out. Like let yourself die off. The only reason I would not let myself die off is one, I couldn't bear the thought of the pain my daughters would suffer. That's one thing. But the other thing is I know I would go there and then James would be like, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be down there watching. That's how he is. You're supposed to be watching the girls. Take your ass back down there. That type of thing. No. Yeah, he could talk to me like that, which I used to find it funny because he was like such a gentleman, and then he'd do stuff which to me, that would crack me up. Now he would go from one extreme to the next. But yeah, he would tell me, you're supposed to be here. So something happened. I don't do drugs. And I went to my sister. She took me to her house. It's like, I don't think it was even a year in. And my nephew had, what do you call it? Weed-laced cookies.
Yeah.
So he says, do you want one? I was like, no. He says, no, they're pretty good. So I ate the cookie and then I realized I wasn't feeling too good. Started getting nauseous, sweating. I had felt my husband hug me before. I could feel the hand on me. It was getting hot. So I looked at my sister and she says, what, are you tripping? And I was like, I don't know. I don't feel good. And then I didn't feel like breathing. I didn't feel like breathing. I was like, oh, something's wrong. Turn on the fans, open the windows, the whole bit, started vomiting the whole bit. But I could feel this, like something hot, and it was grabbing me in the hands. It was coming down both arms. And I was like, I think James is here. I think he's hugging me. Because I kept trying to lean back. And every time I tried to lean back, I couldn't lean back. And I was like, this is crazy. This is totally nuts, going on. And my daughter's panicking. Not my daughter, my sister's panicking. Because I said, if I get in trouble, I'm going to lose my job. I was on sick leave. I said, then you guys are in trouble because how did you get hold of the weed? The thing, turns out she calls my nephew and she says, "What was in the cookies?" And he says, "Well, it's just some weed. I don't know. Yeah, whatever." He said, "Well, she was only supposed to take a bite."
Oh no.
Now I don't do this stuff. And you just hand me a damn cookie and didn't say, Auntie Lynne, you could only take a bite.
Yeah.
So anyway, like the following week, I'm in a circle. I survived. It was a horrible, horrible week. And that's another story in itself. And so when the person I was sitting with can speak very fluidly with them. And I said, ask him, was that him? And he went in on me. He says, yes, that was me. You know what? The only reason you were there is because you were needed there for the girls. We had an agreement. We had an agreement. That was the agreement. I'm supposed to go and I'm supposed to stay and he's supposed to go. And I was like, well, he said, don't do that again. Blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, wow, they take this stuff seriously. But just to find out that he said they could have taken both of us. And they didn't because, and that's when, another reading, I found out that they said you two are walking the same path. Basically, you have the same mission, you have the same journey, but he was needed up there, and you was needed down here. I used to always tell him that I thought he was a warrior in another life. I said, if there are other lives, I think he was a warrior or a knight in shining armor. He comes through one time and he says, I didn't want to go, but they told me God needed his warriors. And he said, that's when he realized that I was tuned in the whole 32 years, and I always said it felt like we always knew each other. We were like two puzzle pieces. We just clicked. Didn't really have to get to know each other because it felt like we knew each other. And I always said that. And that's when I found out that we've been together through previous lifetimes. So there's a whole lot of stuff. It's all intertwined. It's not a rabbit hole. You just keep digging deeper. It's just everything is tangled one on top of the other. And when you think about it or reflect on it, you start to realize that that was another first comment, is none of this is by chance. So when you think of what the spirit world had to do to coordinate all of this between the stuff we were interested in growing up as children, because he always had an interest in fighting and protecting the innocent, or doing the right thing. He had a thing about angels. He would tell me about, I didn't know the difference in angels, but he knew about archangels. And I said, well, what's the big difference with an archangel? And he goes, nah. He said, let me tell you something. You don't F with an archangel. And I was like, he said, no, they will F you up. He said, they're the ones, they fight for the truth and the justice and stuff. So here I'm in the circle, start beginning, and somebody said, he says he's working with Archangel Michael. Okay, that's interesting. And they said what he does is he helps people who passed over, who are lost, to actually come over. They haven't decided, which I didn't. I thought once you're gone, you just over. Apparently, you don't. And then another time, somebody told me there was a nun. Was a medium, and a few weeks ago she got him, and she says, oh, he's with Michael. She said, well, Michael takes the warriors. So I've had people validate several times he's with Archangel Michael, and he's doing the battles. And he said, and then I'm just finding out, well, I've heard a few times that I'm one. I'm also a warrior. Another guy picked up that I was a nurse on the first meeting. And he asked to sit with me, and he's talking about this man sitting next to me with one arm around me and a sword in the other hand. And he says, you've been nursing. You're a nurse, right? I was like, yeah. He says, you've been doing this for a long, long time, which I had already found that out. And he says, and then there's this warrior, and he's just happy to sit with you. He says, your nurse, your healer, that's what he said, your healer is connected to his warrior. It's like, this is like an inseparable thing with you guys. And I was like, wow. And those are the things that made me have to like back off for a few days and like close my laptop. This is just too much to handle.
Yeah.
So I get a lot of too much to handle moments. And, I might disappear for a week. And I was like, this is a little too deep for me. You're just like, it sounds nice to read fairy tales. Stuff with mixed breeds and romance. And so everything, both of us were bookworms. So the stuff that we had interests in also came through in our lifetime, and now it's coming through in the spirit realm. And it was like all of this stuff had to have been set up by the spirit world for us to meet up and get to this point. And that's another moment would make me close my laptop down. And it's like, you know what? Let me go turn something else on. Get my crochet hook out. So, it's like you have to wrap your head around some of these concepts because it was never introduced to me. It was never spoken of. Something I do not believe in coincidence. That's because I'm like a movie buff. Between being a bookworm and a movie buff, and there's the movie Signs where the guy's talking about he doesn't believe in coincidence, and I was like, yeah, I'm not okay. I don't believe in coincidence, so I believe everything is meant to happen. When James passed, my dad, saw me for the first time, and I had to go over there, and he says, "How you doing, kid?" And I was like, I said, my future has been erased, and he says, "No, it hasn't." He says, God doesn't make mistakes. So for whatever reason he did this, it is for a better future. He has plans, and they are better. And so far, he's been right. I actually feel like I know him better now than I did in life. And we could finish each other's sentences. That's the closeness. We could be in two different locations and call up. And it was like, I was even like making dinner and sitting there pulling charts at work. And I'm thinking, maybe I'd make some ziti. I haven't done that in a while. And then my phone rings and I pick it up and say, "Hey, Lynne, I'm in the store. You feel like making ziti tonight?" And it's like, wow. Did I read you or you read me? But this is how we always operated. And it was nothing different for me, but to find out that we've been doing all this stuff and other previous, I've had flashes of the previous life I saw when I met him. So this is, when I tell you, I don't know if I've had more experience learning about mediumship or actually, reading, because now it's getting easier. Like when I started trance, I would do the meditation and I felt nothing. You and I have spoken on it. You go places and you have wonderful visions, and I'm working so hard just to get a vision. Give me something. Nothing. I'm just in the black and it's purple glob, and I found out, well, that's where you need to be. But I went to this trance, the healing with the lady. I don't know if I can name her name, but I go to the lady, and the first time I lay on the sofa, and you just lay there and listen. And she's talking you through this meditation, and I feel like some like vibrations, like all over. And I was like, "This is crazy. Maybe I'm meant to do trance." And that's how I ended up studying trance, just because that's the only time I felt a connection. When I meditated, I got nothing, just the black with the purple glob.
Yeah. And that just goes to show that everybody's different. Some people get what they need in meditation and some people don't. So, but I love the fact that your husband has never stopped communicating with you and continuously finds ways to
and
come
he's
through.
Teaching me. That's what gets. And then somebody even told me, he said, "Do you know he talks to you through the night while you're sleeping? He's teaching you stuff." And to me, I was like, really? And then his mother would come through, and the mother, I remember I dreamt about the mother, and she's telling me, she says, "I have stuff to tell you. I need you to remember this. You're going to remember it?" I said, "Yeah, sure, I'll remember." And she's telling me this easy stuff to remember. I wake up, I still can't remember anything. But they're like, when you need it, it's going to come in. Yeah. But at one point, I wouldn't sleep. I think my sleep is shot, but I would have the lights on all night. And she came through and she says, you can turn off the light at night. She says, "We're watching you. You're safe." And I was like, "You're watching me?" The stuff that you hear, like they know what you're thinking. They know what's going to happen in the future. That's another mind-bending moment for me. So you mean there's no such thing as privacy? Nurses and stuff, policing, confidentiality is protocol, directives, orders. Everything is rigid. It's set. It's procedure. And then here you go. The doors to the spirit world were just like pretty much blown open, and it's have your way with it. Just do what you want. So it's like when I say my entire life changed, that was the life-changing event. And that's why I say it's his journey as much, because I was told he when I was getting ready to take one of the trance classes, somebody was reading me, and he said, there's a class coming up that you're going to go to. I said, yeah. He said, you just make sure you're there, because he sits alongside you and he's learning it as well. So I didn't know that the spirit world learns as well, but he says, I have to teach you. I have to have you ready. So he does teach me. He taught me about what's going on the other side, which, like I said, he didn't believe in it. And he says, I know. Now, here was his message that I didn't tell anybody. Well, I did, but he says, because he didn't believe in it, he says, I know, but after he told me what it's like to be in heaven, I know that it sounds too good to be true, but it's good that it is true. And he says, and that's what God wants people to know, that this is not the end. This is just the beginning.
Yeah.
And that's what he tells you, send the word out. So I would send words or whatever, or tell people about mediumship. And anyway, and then other people would come through and they give me the reading, and they said, he says, no, you're doing good. Your word is like throwing a pebble into the water, and it's reverberating. You're doing a great job. And I would ask, could you ask him, am I getting his messages? Because when you're starting this, you don't know what you're getting. If you're getting something, or if you're imagining. And he's like, it's just a little bit you're getting. It's getting better. Or you were being tested here. You're doing great, kid. So he's teaching me, which, that initial medium came out after, you listen to him, and he says, well, mediumship, he said, they don't come to shoot the shit. They just come to drop a message and go. And I'm like, I hate to tell him he was wrong. They do come to tell jokes, because he says one of the better things with this is he can still make me laugh. He tells his jokes and he plays his tricks on me, and I'm kind of aware of stuff. I was like, did you do that? But that's the thing. It's actually made our relationship stronger, which I didn't think that was even possible. But I still would rather be able to see him, which that is the other thing. Is like, why can't I see and hear you? And he did explain it is like a radio station. And he said, just like, how you're trying to dial in and you hear the static. He said, when you get to my frequency, then you will see and hear me. So
wow.
I'm told it's getting there. I'm getting there.
Yeah.
But this is like this carrot. I did go to an angel communicator once, and she did ask me about his religion. Was he religious? And I said, well, he was, Catholic, but he wasn't practicing. She said, would he have allowed you to do this? I was like, well, allowed? I said, he would encourage anything I wanted to do. He would never stop me. Anything I was interested in, he would do that. He would actually encourage me and actually do stuff to help me do it. Just like I said, recording and stuff. And I said, however, knowing how uncomfortable he was with the spirit world, supernatural stuff, out of love and out of respect, I would not have practiced this at all. I would not be sitting here if it were not for him. So I wouldn't have met you or any of the wonderful people I've met. But because of him, that's why I said this is his story just as much as it is mine. And since we are on the same path, just in different realms, it doesn't mean we're separated. That's the upside, which I have told people, it's which is easier. Give me a couple of minutes of comfort knowing that he's still around, or for me to sit there and think about him laying in a casket.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple. And then I usually get the strange look, like, okay, we're going to leave her alone on this one. I was like, come on. Yeah, you'd rather shoot me down and tell me I'm evil than say, okay, if that gives you comfort for 10 minutes and go with God. So, the people are strange, which I've always known that. Quite used to it.
Yeah. I love how he, like you said, out of respect, you didn't sort of go into this or, open that door.
It took a while to decide. Yeah.
Yeah. But then in his passing, here he is now encouraging you to walk through that door and go for it, and I'll help you, and let me lead the way.
Every step of the way, as he said, every step. He said, we are in lockstep, which I had to learn because of military school background. And what is lockstep? He's like, yes, when you're marching, you ever see the groups about it?
Yeah.
That's lockstep. So he says, no, we're in lockstep with this. He says, and I will not let you fall. You will not fail, and I will not let you fall. in the Burgess household, failing is not an option. You're not allowed to fail. You are not allowed to quit. So when I was going through all types of stuff at work, and I was like, oh, I'm sick of these people. I'm out of here. And he was like, if you feel you must, do what you got to do. He says, but, you fight it out. You check these MFers. Don't let them run you off. Quitting's not an option, Lynne. Suck it up. Be tough. So I've learned to suck it up and be tough. And I give him that credit. Well, I gave him a certain sense of humor. He gave me my my toughness.
Yeah.
Because I was truly a marshmallow, especially before I became a mother. You look at me the something wrong way, and I'm in tears. I'm crying. After I had babies, I will tear your face off with my hands. Come near my children. I become.
Yeah.
That's how you. I will rip your face off. Get away from my kid.
Yeah.
So, that's the like I said, this world versus the spirit realm. It's like we blew the doors off the whole thing. Go ahead, Lynne. It's like your playground. Do what you want.
Yeah, that's it. So how does your family, do you talk to your family about what happens now, like all your experiences? Like sisters
yes.
or yeah?
Yes, my sister is totally on board. She is on board. She has taken his passing. You would think she was his wife. My sister would sit here and cry her out, tissues, snot, the red face. And I'm like, I pulled myself together. And you're going to come sit here and cry. You can't say that to me. It's just not fair. The whole bit. And that's what it is, the blowing it enough. And I tell her, and she's happy about it. So she's like tuned into a lot of stuff, but she's like so busy and in another world. She is on board with it. She has 5 granddaughters. She has her kid she has one daughter. Daughter's had 5. Just had the 5th kid a few weeks ago. The one who was the day before my husband passed, Mia, was 2 years old, and he had dropped something by the house. And as he got into bed, because it was the Super Bowl that night, he gets into bed like 3:30 in the morning, and he's talking to me, and he says, "Oh, I saw Mia," and Mia says, "I love Uncle James." And I was like, "Yeah, so you always were a baby magnet." Babies come to him and just put their arms out, climb in his lap, and go to sleep. And he's 6'4" and holds these kids like like being on another bed, and that's how he's always been. So I didn't think anything of it. But after he passed, this is a 2-year-old. If she didn't like something was happening, she told my sister. She said, "That's okay. I'll get Uncle James to get it for me." Well, I'll do Uncle James. She's like, Uncle James and the boy.
Oh.
Now, the boy, I had a miscarriage in 1990. I got to like 19 weeks and had a miscarriage. And I know that the miscarriages go somewhere.
Yeah.
I have had a total of 3 miscarriages. So between the 2 miscarriages, I had the 2 daughters. And then right after 9/11, I had another one. So anyway, I had this one. And so the lady that said was talking to me for like 6 hours. She's in the 6 hours, she brings up the fact that I have 3 children. I said, no, I no. They tell you don't feed the meter, right? No. She says, you don't have 3 children? I said, no. She says, you have 2 daughters. I was like, yes. And she goes, okay. And she looks, she goes, did you have a miscarriage? I said, yeah. She says, well, you have a son. I was like, oh, okay. And I said, well, what's his name? She goes, he doesn't have a name. She said, because the mother's supposed to name him. I'm like, well, I didn't know to name him. I didn't know he has a name. He was coming to me in my dreams before this, after James passed. And I remember I would dream about him. He would come in my dreams during this time where I was getting all of these messages. And like the first dream was like a few days after. And comes in the apartment. I could still feel the cold on his coat, and he kisses me. And I said, they told us you died. And he comes all the way here where I'm, and he says, no, I'm okay. And I said, but they told us you died. And he says, no, Lynne, it was pneumonia and a few other things. And he says, I'm okay. He says, what he used to always say to me, when you're together with somebody for years, sometimes you wonder, are they bored with you, right? I don't know about you. And, so I would ask him, are you okay with me? Are you bored with me? And so why do you ask this question? I was like, because I wonder, you might be like, she's sick all the time. She's always, sleep, or she's crabby or whatever, she's gained weight. Yeah. And he was like, no, he says, his answer would be, I'm right here and I'm not going anywhere. So here he comes through my dream and they tell me you died. And he goes, I already told you I'm right here and I'm not going anywhere. So it was like, oh, that was weird. So there he is. So and I would dream about him every now and then. I was like, well, you want me to check your blood pressure? And when I would ask him that, his eyes would tear up, you'd see him get upset. So I was like, all right, we're not going to. In my dream, he did not pass away. It was a close call. And then I start remembering he did pass away. And I'd come out of the dream was like, this is so effed up. What a life.
Yeah.
That's what I would think. So a couple of times as I stopped learning to ask, finally I said, well, who is this boy? I said, this kid keeps coming into my dream. He's like, late teens, early 20s. One time he hands me 3 little tiny babies in the little carrier. You wrap them up in papooses. He hands me them in red, yellow, and pink, green, and yellow. He hands them to me, and I put them in my pocket. Another time he comes in and he just like sat there and he smiles. So I said, who is this kid that keeps coming to my dream? And he just looks straight ahead. He goes, you already know. I was like, no, I don't. I asked him another time. He wouldn't answer the question. I found out that's who this guy is. So he would come at different points. And then in the circles, he started showing up. So, and then now I found out he's been with me longer than James. He's talked about me. He's brought up incidences from when I was a child. So
wow.
That's and now here's something that you did. You had me go to a seminar, a demo. The guy
yes.
Yes. And it was like a half an hour before it started and I paid for it and got in, and he's doing by gallery and he's reading everybody, but he did a drawing. When he held up the picture to the drawing, I saw Lynne Burgess at the top. So I was like, what's my name doing in that paper? And at the end, he decides, he says, well, before I started, I got a message from a spirit and he gave me the name. He said, so is there a Lynne Burgess here? And he's telling me, it's James. And my birthday was coming up that week and he's giving me the message. And he says, would you understand a young baby or a boy or something like that? And I said, yes. And he said, well, how did you know? I said, well, I didn't know it was a miscarriage and going to this. And he says, well, he's the one that gave me your name.
Oh,
and I was like, wow, this is just crazy. It's like you figure everything's the cherry on top. This is the highest we can go. And then there's something else that comes up for me. So I'm, that's the thing that excites me is as sad as I am. I could have my moments. I would have numb moments where I was fine. And then the other moments, like I said, I'm staring off into space and I'm thinking of Doctor Strange and Marvel comic books with the time gem. That's another thing. But that's why I said I'm constantly learning. And I tell people, like you said, do I tell anybody? I tell people that this life it's amazing. That it's not something that's discussed, that it's not something that is taught. You can't really get a book on it because things are constantly changing. I told my parents about it. My parents were kind of like very skeptical. They're not going to say much. My dad would understand. My dad comes from like 15 or more children, siblings. And a lot of them have passed and his parents have passed. And, I would tell him, he just turned 90. So I would tell him about it. And I was on key, I would get these messages and he would understand it. But if it was anybody else, he'd tell me this is BS. So I was like, well, how come it applies to your family, but not mine? So my brother, he thinks it's crap. But here's the thing. I told you about my grandfather. My grandfather passed when I was 2. My brother was 4. And I saw him in the living room. And I can still see it just as if it was happening today. He's standing in the living room and got excited and told my mom, he said, Mommy, we saw Grandpa. And you can see her face kind of change. We saw Grandpa. She's looking around and she says, however way she told us he had passed away, she said like he died. And was like, well, what does that mean? I'm 2 years old. And she says, well, he went to heaven. It's like, well, where's heaven? She says, up in the sky. So, bro, as a kid, I look up in the sky. I was like, I still don't see him. But I saw him. And I know that was him. Years later, I was 13 and my grandmother died. It was this grandfather's person. And she used to live with us. And I go to she got sick and she was going to the hospital for testing, and they didn't have room in the car for me and another cousin. So we had to stay home. And I remember looking at them getting into the car and walking away. And I was looking through the window and something said, go look again because it's the last time you're going to see her.
Oh.
So I go to look and I was like, oh, you're being, 13, you're over dramatic. It's all hormones and you're nutty.
Yeah.
She passed a few hours later. So
Wow.
she did live with us, and my dad was like losing it. He's the youngest boy, and he's, people are trying to keep him calm, and he's couldn't sit down, and blah, blah, blah. But I dreamt about her. She's in the backyard, and she's in the dress, the gown she was wearing in the casket. And she tells me, tell your father I didn't die. And I told him.
Really?
That's what I said. So when I tell people I don't see, like I'm waiting to see and hear James, and I haven't, and I realized I've been seeing things I just didn't realize. I saw my grandfather, I saw my grandmother, I saw his head in the television, silhouette. So I see things, but apparently I guess I'm not ready enough. And that's one of the strange messages that I received. It's like, when you're ready, this is the stuff that's going to happen. And I'm like, when I'm ready. Now you're worried about when I'm ready. You can't really lip off at an angel. Yeah. But I'm like, when I'm ready, was I ready for him to leave? Was I ready to sleep by myself? Was I ready to do this the rest of my life alone? Was I ready for it? Did you ask me, was I ready? So now I got to be ready to see him? Are you serious? But I'm sure they laughed. I was a delegate for the nurses, the president, because I'm the only one brave enough, as it turned out, or willing enough to speak to these bosses. They're not just bosses, they're people of rank. They're captains, they're inspectors, they're everything. And it's a police department. I'm sure you've heard about it. The ego is NYPD and all of that. And we'd have these monthly nurses meetings, and I would be the one that had to write up the agenda, and I'd have to sit with these people. Nobody wants to sit with them. So I would have to sit with them. And I'm like, this is crazy. And I would tell, James was a police officer. He didn't make rank because he got injured, and he didn't. And he's like, Lynne, they're human beings. You know that. Just go in and let them know, you're in violation of this, that. And I would tell them, you have the nurses do this and we can't do. But I would be the one to do that. And I'm like, I wasn't ready for that, but I still had to do it. I'm used to having that discomfort of having to face things. So like I said, who am I to lip off at an angel? I already put my question in. I think they haven't I think they're still laughing at me. My question, so now y'all know I told everybody my question, is why can't we have visiting privileges? Why can't our deceased people, they get to visit them once a month or every 6 months and sit down and, hi, how are you? I want visiting privileges. They're probably still laughing at me, but they might just still be working on it, because you never know what I call them, the administrative staff, is going to think. I was told by the angel lady that at the moment of his passing, she said, a disciple named Peter came and snatched you up and took you, held you so that you wouldn't pretty much fall apart. So it was like, a disciple. Weren't there only 12 of them? I looked dead. Peter, I was like, what does Peter want with me? And they keep telling me I have this special journey that I'm on, some mission I'm supposed to be doing. And that's why James and I are doing what we do. And I'm like, but how come that's the other thing. When you're ready, we'll let you know. I was like, again, with the ready.
Yeah.
You didn't ask me, was I ready?
They don't like to reveal too much, do they?
Yeah. I was like, when I'm ready, well, I wasn't ready for a whole lot of other stuff. But but I did tell the family, they some took it, some didn't. Like I said, I'm at the point where it's not my job to convince you people. Either you believe or you don't. But listen, if it gives me a moment of comfort, or as my dad is 3 years, and he saw me yesterday, and he's like, hi. I'd stop by to take my mom someplace, and I said, well, why are you smiling? Because you're smiling. And my sister told me, she said, Daddy's so happy that you smile again. I was like, Yeah, well, I get my messages from James, and I've met family that I never met. I got like her uncles would come in, my friends who've passed away. I've spoken to them. I've spoken to coworkers. I remember Maureen. She's the other nurse. She died from a 9/11 thing, and when she came through, she was like, "Thank God you finally retired. You need to get out of that place." And I was like, "Wow." And she used to always say, that they operate like they're in the 1940s, very old fashioned. She's like, "No, you needed to get out." They would have sent me to psych services. I never went back. They would have sent me to psych services, I believe. It's like something's wrong. We know they knew I was married to an officer. They knew my dad was the chief. They knew the entire family was either cops or civilians on this job. So just knowing me and how I operate, they'd have been like, she took a really hard blow. So we're going to reassign her, which I did not want to get reassigned. I think they would probably end up reassigning me if they found out I was doing this stuff. Like, she's lost it. Can't fire her. Put her in a little corner and let her count paper clips.
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't want to deal with that on top of everything else in my life being changed.
Yeah.
So I never, and then I feel like, I lost my career. And then I'm told, "Oh, you're going to be a healer." And I was like, "Well, I already did that." And it's like, "Yeah, we know you're a healer, but you're going to heal without using your hands." And it's like, okay.
So it's a little bit, it's a change up of job of sorts, with no real details. They just give them drip feed them to you as you go.
Yeah. And then we're going to tell you while you're sleeping.
Yeah.
But you're not going to remember.
Yeah.
So,
it's not the conventional way that we're used to learning, but hey ho, right?
Yeah. Well, you know what? Now this is the weird part that I'm going through now, Michelle. Between doing the trance and the consciousness states, is I will turn on a movie or a television, and I know, oh, that's the killer. Oh no, that one's cheating. That one's the embezzle. I just know it, and then I watch the rest to see if I got it right. It's just I've already figured out the whole plot within minutes. It was just like, huh.
Yeah.
I want to watch this now. So So that's my thing. And somebody told me your psychic levels have increased, and that's the other thing of dealing with the constant changes, or they call them downloads or promotions or whatever it is.
Yeah.
That's the other thing of, I don't know how you feel dealing with it, but it's kind of destabilizing, because you're like, where did that come from? When did I start doing that?
Yeah. Or you get used to one way and next minute it's different, and you're like, hang on, where did this change? This changed somewhere there. Yeah. Again, it's always the element of surprise. There's no forewarning. It's just going to happen.
Yeah, and then I sit there thinking they're laughing about it. Let's throw this one at her, see what she does.
Yeah,
they got to have a sense of humor.
Absolutely.
So I said they have to. Like, I always wondered, did my grandmother with 14 kids have a sense of humor? Because all of them were like off the wall, totally off the wall. One of the cousins, who's a granddaughter to those two, she sees things. She lost two of her sons. She sees things, and it's the first funeral I went to after James passed, and it was a memorial service for another cousin. So they finished it. I go over to her. She's living in Texas, and she came to New York. And I said, "Tina, can I ask you?" I said, "Did you see Georgie?" Yeah, he was the one who passed. She says, "Yeah, I did." He was smiling the whole time, and I was like, "Wow." I said, "My husband died, right?" She goes, "Yes." I said, "This is what I'm going through." I said. She says, well, she tells me how she sees her sons all the time. They stand on either side of her, protecting her. And I said, how come you never went forward with this or tried to learn more or hone your skills? She said, I didn't tell anybody. I didn't want them to think I was crazy. So, And then I have another cousin who she's spoken to spirits her whole life. And I keep trying to get her to join me. And she said, I brag to everybody. Guess what Lynne's doing? She said, I'm the one who didn't know I could do this. These people grew up doing it their whole life. And they're like, I don't know if I want to, because I was told, it's a big money-making thing. It's a big entertainment thing to go to mediums and psychics and stuff. And I said, well, I didn't do it for that. I said, I do it for the sole selfish purpose. I told him, I will learn this and I will meet you halfway. And then when I started getting readings, somebody had said, first it was the 6-hour lady, and she said, yeah, he's delighted you're doing this. He said, because he's waiting to meet you halfway. And when they make comments like that, you know that they are actually connected to that person, or they've told you something that only you and he know, or you and your uncle. Like they got my uncle, my mother's uncle, and they had everything right about him. And they talked about him tap dancing. And I said, yeah, I told my mom, it's very skeptical. And she just goes, mm-hmm. She doesn't say, I don't know what she just goes, mm-hmm. So I know that's her skeptic sound. And I said, well, they said Uncle William used to tap dance. She's like, he did. I was like, did he? She said, oh, he was great at it. I was like, well, he was talking about him tap dancing. And
wow.
I gave her the message that he gave me. Basically what he said, and another uncle said, you know how you have the life review? You don't sit, no, you're not judged. You're kind of judging yourself with the life review. And he says, get your act together before you pass away, because you got to deal with that life review. And he says, it's not a good feeling. Mm-hmm. So straighten your act up. If you go around hurting people and whatever, unhurt them, apologize. And I was like, wow, that's interesting, because they're like, the two uncles are like the kindest people, I was like, no, y'all didn't hurt anybody, did you? But apparently they must have. That's part of being a human being. You don't mean to. Some people are deliberate.
Yeah, that's it.
That's their life goal, is let me damage people. As this country's going through that now.
Yeah. 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 Wow. Look, I just, I want to thank you for being courageous enough to come on to the show and talk about what I would like to call and I see it as a continued love story.
Yes, it's not over. It's not over. I would love to know what my journey is going to be, but it's hush hush.
Yeah.
I've even questioned that. Why is everything a secret? Why did they wait till I got to this age? And they said that's how it was set up.
Yeah,
that's how it was set up. As James has told me, when he came to Earth, he knew he was supposed to look for me. And it was like, and then he said, the moment I saw you, I fell in love with you. And it was like, to know him, you would understand that comment. He's like very low key, very to himself. When we were introduced, we were introduced in the ER. I was working, and another nurse introduced us. He had brought in his partner, was her boyfriend, and James was like so excited when he met me. You married? And that's not him. So I was like, oh, and never, here I'm finding all these years later that he actually fell in love with me when he met me. But my thing is, I told him, it was something about the voice. Yeah. It struck a nerve, and that was just weird. But that's another thing. But yeah, it took a lot to do this, I got to tell you. I hope I didn't bore people to death.
No, look, I find it amazing and beautiful how so many people think that once someone passes, that's it, they're gone. And they're not. They're still here. They're just in a different form. They're communicating differently. And it's such a beautiful relationship that you have continued to have, that you're continuing to have with your husband. So just beautiful. It's just amazing. I can't even describe it. I wouldn't even call it miraculous, because it almost seems, I guess, for the other side, normal, or like you say, a journey that was always destined to be.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It's totally, it's like I said, I've been asked, they said you should write a book, because it sounds like the books I would read, the fairy tale books. And that's why I was like, this is like the thing with the dragon. I would ask him, how does he come? He has to be my gatekeeper. And I didn't know what the heck a gatekeeper was. So yeah, whatever. And then I had to look it up, and it says they come as something to scare off others, to protect you. So I'm sitting there on the terrace 2 a.m. And I was like, well, how do you come to me? Like, I'm not really hearing him. And I saw an image of a dragon. And then it turns out somebody says, would you understand a dragon in a castle? I was like, yeah. What?
Yeah.
So that's you can just like kind of knock me over with a feather sometimes. But it's just interesting. And just even trying to deal with people dealing with this life, because you can't go around telling everybody, or if you tell them, they're just like, oh, they don't know how to respond to you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like the crickets, Evie.
Yeah. Yeah. But, look, when the time's right and people find themselves in a situation where they do love someone and they get to a point where they're grieving and they desperately want that communication, that's when those seeds are planted and doors are opened. And that's when they start becoming curious and the exploration begins for most people. Yeah.
Yeah. One of his friends calls me periodically just to check on me. And I told him about it. And he does not believe in anything. He's even had comments because he was friends. He was one of the 4 in the academy. And he's like, yeah, but Lynne, how do you move on with your life if you're busy dabbling in the unalived people? And I said, well, well, they were like, when are you going to live? I was like, well, what is living?
Yeah.
That was my life. I was like, listen, I'd go to work, I'd come home, I'd deal, whatever stuff is home, and watch movies and stuff and go to bed. I was like, I'm not going to move. I don't plan on moving. I'm not going to remarry. I'm not doing this again. And I'm not going to get another career. So what?
Yeah.
But he feels, that's his thing. And I'm like, I don't know how to get it through to you. But then it's like, it's not your job to get it through to him. But it's like, that's it. I'm not.
Yeah.
This is it. I'm not planning to remarry. I have no intention. I have no desire. And some people don't understand it because as I've found out, there are people who've lost their husbands. They've been with 30 years or whatever, and they're out dating a week or two later. I'm like,
yeah.
How in love were you? But everybody is different. They're very, different. But it's like I said, it was just totally not on my agenda. I was gonna retire. We had it planned. We're gonna travel. We're gonna be couple time again, and then whammo.
Yeah.
Here he is. Yeah, because he kept saying, he wanted me to leave when COVID hit. I want you to leave. Your immune system is shot from when you did chemo, and they didn't care about you when you were sick. So I said, well, I put in for reasonable accommodation. They did not give that to me. And I'm working in long hours. I said, well, everybody around me, they know me and they protect me and they're not letting anybody, near me. So I go and I do what I had to do. But he kept saying, I can't lose you. And then he turns around and passes away. I did not know about this. So I got my journal and listening to the therapist and I'm writing. I cussed him out and like, who the F does this? What the F? You told me you can't, you can't lose me and then you up and leave. Who does that? So then I find out that they could see everything you read, and I was like, I'm really sorry about what I wrote.
Whoopsie.
Apologies. So that's not how I think, but I was just so angry thinking about it. I was like, I waited all these years to retire and poof, you're gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but like I said, but this is quite the journey. I can't say I'm bored.
No, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And look, this is very encouraging for a lot of other husbands or wives out there that have lost someone. I
hope so.
Yeah, that they're not really gone. And I mean, you and I as mediums, we've heard this from other people who've lost husbands or wives, that
or children.
Yeah,
parents.
that they're still coming through. So, this is a story of great hope and the proof that life does go on, just in another form.
Yeah.
It does go on and it does continue. And love does continue to grow.
That it does. That it does. I've always said, I was totally nuts about it. And I didn't understand why, but now I do. I get it. We were together before. I get it. It's just like, wow.
Yeah.
This is stuff that actually is one of the things that make you go,
Yeah.
Or like I said, it was a few weeks after it happened, I had to go to a pulmonologist's office and he saw something was off of me and I told him what happened. And he says, wow, oh my gosh. And as he's talking to me, I said, would you understand? I said, sometimes I forget to breathe. And he says, yes, I would understand. But you find yourself so caught up in that moment of loss. Like I would realize I hadn't taken a breath in a while. It's like, oh, it's just, you're just there.
Yeah.
And that tremendous loss, you realize, like I said, I thought I was unraveling. I thought I was imagining. And it was like, all right, I'm going to have to go to a medium and find out, have I unraveled? Or you're dealing with, you're working in the ER. People have come and shot up and passed away. I remember they called a guy a Swiss cheese. Did you see the walking Swiss cheese? He was shot so many times, he's full of holes. And he came and was like, somebody help me, I've been shot. That type. I mean, I've seen people die. I've had family who died. I've had friends. So to me, this happened, and I'm seeing and hearing things. It's like, all right, it's because he was your husband. To me, he was unkillable.
Yeah.
He was a superhero to me. He was into the superhero, into the comic stuff that I wasn't. He got the girls into it, and I did. And it was we even wrote it in his not the obituary, but I forgot what you call it. But anyway,
the eulogy.
Thank you, the eulogy. And at the end, we put he was a marvel. He was very much like those superheroes in personality. And when I first saw, before I get into my first circle, I was trying to figure out how to work out the classes. I didn't know how to do the computer. I didn't know how to do the Zoom. I didn't know how to look for a circle, nothing. But I came across somebody, in Messenger, and apparently he was, I think, maybe 50. And he said he's died numerous times. He said he died like 7 times before he was 10 years old. So he was open to a whole bunch of spirit realm. And he picked up my husband. He says, did you lose a husband? And he's talking and he's telling me he's going up a spiral staircase. He said he has access to different realms. That's very unusual. He has access to different worlds. And I was like, he does? And he goes, yeah. He says, he's like a superhero. And I said, that's funny. He loves superheroes. I said, he introduced my girls to it. Now I know some about it. And, we talked. And then the next day, I messaged him again. Well, how do I get this? And he says, I was just telling my wife, I spoke to somebody who's married to a superhero. And I was like, oh, that's very kind of you. He says, no, I'm not being kind. You married a superhero. He said he actually is a superhero. And I was like, he said, because you don't get access to different, he had just passed. So like, how come he gets to go all over? He said he is special. He has special abilities that other spirits. And I didn't know there was spirits did different things. Never, I haven't gotten to that level that they do different things. Like you have a president and you have the people who are nurses or teachers and stuff, did different things. But I was just like, wow. He was very strong. He was very fast. So to me, he was unkillable. And like I said, I thought I was going first. So this was quite an eye-opener.
Yeah. Oh, and then some. Wow, what a journey. And I guess you could say a love that is infinite. It's timeless. There's no boundaries. It's incredible, really incredible. Yeah.
I might get to the book one day, or just to let it out, just to get it out of my system.
Yeah,
because I'm still trying to
look forward to that.
Wrap your head around it. You still. I'm still. If I'm telling you this, what else are they going to reveal to me that I have to go lay down?
Yeah, exactly.
Let me go turn on some music and get some iced tea. That's the type of thing. It is just like, wow. You walk away scratching your head. I was like, what did I get myself into?
Yeah.
Wow. But I'm not afraid. That's the thing. I don't.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid. So.
Well, with all of that going on and knowing that your husband's still with you and your grandmother and, you've got the family behind you.
Even patience that I've had. They came and I was like, what? They care about me. And they said, oh, you're really nice.
Yeah.
So okay.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah. Thank you so much, Lynne, for sharing your story and being on the show. It's been.
Thank you for having me.
You've shared an incredible journey, and I'd really love to have you back again soon to tell more exciting stories, because I'm sure you've got more after all of those.
Yeah, well, it's going to be a mental buildup again. I worked hard at not doing this for you. I got things to do.
I know where you are. I know where you are on the other side of Zoom.
Yeah, I know where you live. Yeah, I know where you live.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Lynne. It has been a pleasure, and I look forward to having you back again very soon.
Okie doke.
To view the show notes, head over to themediumstable.com.au. If you want to watch these episodes, head over to our YouTube channel, The Medium's Table Podcast.